Hello, and welcome to your leadership seminar on your role as secretary in 2025. My name is Julia Yamaoka Thorne, and I'll be your host in this tutorial, although I know I'm preaching to the choir because many of you know a lot about being a secretary. First of all, I want to congratulate all of you for taking on the job and responsibility. We know it can be a challenge, but you've got a lot of resources to help you in this task. You may have noticed that in a lot of my emails, I have this logo, Democracy Dies in Darkness. This is true, and your role as secretary sheds light on so many matters that keeps democracy alive. First, I've got some information from Dorsey Harris, whom you know from NCAE and NCRSP, who first gave us a training about your role as a secretary. In his words, and as you've seen in your handout and in your own personal slideshow to which this Zoom tutorial has been attached, you're the key to organized, timely, and strong communication. You work closely with your executives. You adjust to the style of your leadership that you're serving. You help with the agenda for every meeting. You keep attendance and membership records. You record, prepare, and email out the minutes, snail mail to members without email. You maintain records of all reports, including the finance reports, budgets, reports from your governing committees. You issue, broadcast, and publish the minutes in accordance to the wishes of your executive board. You keep all the documents to transfer them to the next group of leaders. You assist with communications to and from the RSP and your region, and you help the communication chair with newsletters, websites, social media, and greeting cards. You send updates to the NCRSP Panorama Editor, local media, and social media to help advertise your events and nurture contents. Here's Julia pointing the way to the market in Fez, Morocco, and I hope this isn't foreign country that I'm taking you through, but a land that's very familiar to you, about reporting what you see and what you hear and what is in accordance to the business. Dorsey had this interesting visual aid to help us keep in mind what makes a good local RSP secretary or regional secretary. You're going to manage the membership and registration. Oftentimes at the meeting itself, you may be seated or might be one of the people seated at the registration table, making sure that members sign in and get their name tags, for example. Sometimes the president may have a separate hospitality host, but sometimes he or she may rely on you. You're going to keep an accurate record of the membership. As part of the leadership, you're one of the people who also get the monthly membership report, and that way it'll help you to get to know your members, new, retained, and your leadership too, to know what name belongs to which person, and also for whom to make new name tags. You'll also be able to access the Constitution, bylaws, and policy of your local RSP and of NCRSP. The hyperlink in the slideshow handout that you have will also link you to the governing documents for NCRSP. Dorsey's other tips were to decide if this job is right for you. I hope that you do decide if you've been elected, appointed, or volunteered as such, because every RSP and region needs someone as a secretary. And organizing yourself with a laptop, desktop, or notebook will help you. Maintain a friendly, professional demeanor and stay positive no matter what happens. Try to establish contacts and build strong relationships. Make sure that you meet with the outgoing secretary and get as many of the documents as you can. Learn that good organizational skills are important. I know that you're already aware of that. He recommends that you go small to big in organizing files and documents. I've started with a 1-inch binder, and even it's just the first year, and I've already gone to a 3-inch binder and growing. But also in cloud space, which we'll talk about later. Develop good contacts and use them wisely. Rely on an intricate network of friends and contacts to conduct business as secretary for your RSP or region. And please know that your job is important because you can help your organization keep accurate records of everything that goes on. Your president might also ask you to organize some events and certainly to help share and advertise the events. He estimates that a 1-hour meeting would yield 1 to 2 pages of minutes. That's very conservative, I think, and he recommended that the minutes should be shared within 5 days. I'm now going to share with you some of the nuts and bolts of what some of these tips that Dorsey suggested would entail. As far as the organization goes, we always hear we got to do it, but how is important. I think and try to remind myself to think ahead 50 years. Well, even I'd be satisfied just thinking about the next year, but I try to plan full scale because so many things will occupy a lot of space on your computer drive. And we're thinking in terms of how to predict that space that you're going to need and how to accommodate it. On the bottom of this slide, you see what my desktop has. Yes, it's built in. It has a built-in 1 terabyte HDD. My computer also names it D, but there are other things that could also be named as a D drive, as you may discover on your own tree system. Right now, my in-computer terabyte is 95% full. I have another year to go. My computer also has a 250 gigabyte SSD at 96% full. I also have an external 1 terabyte drive that's halfway full already. I have a 2 terabyte cloud drive for the website because I'm also the webmaster. And I have a 100 gigabyte cloud drive for NCRSP, which is 15% full. I've acquired that space because I am anticipating that at my current rate of productivity, I'm going to need space, and you never know what task is going to lie ahead. For your own peace of mind, you could think about how to anticipate and prepare for getting space, because size can help you. Size matters. To give you an idea about what space occupies or what lives in your space. You know, those little thumbnail pictures that you see on emails, that is about a kilobyte. So 1 kilobyte, which equals 1,000 bytes, is a small thumbprint photo or a few paragraphs. Moreover, that small thumbprint photo or thumbnail photo is very small, so the definition is very, very bad. If you try to expand it, it's so horribly pixelated, it's not very useful. The next step, 1,000 kilobytes equals a megabyte. You can fit 500 to 1,000 pages of text depending upon the content, such as extra illustrations, any kind of inset or image that you may include in it. So a gigabyte is really the most practical way to think in 2025. A gigabyte is 1,000 megabytes, which can hold 250 high definition, HD, high definition photos. If you have poorly defined photos, when you try to make them big or try to look at them close up, the pixelation interferes with the accuracy. Or, in other words, 1 gigabyte can also accommodate 10,000 pages of text, and that's with very few bells and whistles. Not very practical. A terabyte really is the way to go. If you're a secretary and recording a lot of things and taking photographs, making name tags and agenda and any other accessories that we'll talk about later. A terabyte is 1,000 gigabytes, and that will accommodate 85 million pages of text, depending upon the content. Again, not too many bells and whistles added to the page. When we think of that organization, we're thinking about some accessories that could help. Solid state drives, SSDs, use flash memory chips to store data. This will also help accommodate operating systems, and you could see there are many choices, some of them expensive, but the good news is that almost daily we see the price dropping and the size expanding. Technology is making it cheaper and bigger for the consumer. Another organization help is the hard disk drive, HDDs, magnetic storage devices. I had my husband install a new SSD, an auxiliary one in my desktop, which accommodated for a lot more memory. But I also have another external drive too. And the big terabytes that used to be like books that required their own separate dedicated power supply and so forth are things of the past. Now they're compact, small, and cheap. Some of you, if you're pioneers of the old days, remember the optical discs, the spinning discs. Unless you have writable, editable media, it's usually good for one shot only, depending upon that product that you buy. But it's more practical for long term. For example, once you've gotten one term or one block of information or data that you want to archive or keep into perpetuity or share to the next secretary, then that something like that may be practical. However, nowadays, many of the laptops do not have a drive to accommodate that, and you have to buy a disk reader for that reason. But the best, and there is no one best, but the best storage device is the cloud. There isn't one best cloud product, however, but here are a few that are available to us. There's so many new cloud services. I use a Google Drive and the OneDrive Microsoft, and I use both of them. I back up everything to both items. I haven't used Dropbox since I've been retired, and there's a new platform, at least new to me, which is Box Inc. Some leaders have told me that they have trouble bridging the gap between Apple products and Microsoft products, but you could laugh at that problem, really, because there are adaptable cords that will help you bridge the two worlds, so you could retrieve documents, send documents, no matter what type of device you have. And they too are becoming more available and cheaper. Now, I talked about organization, but what does that really look like on your computer? This slide looks pretty gnarly, but it's meant to help us understand what the tree does. When I say travel the tree, your computer has an internal system that allows us to look at a tree of different storage areas, of different files, and it's really exciting, handy, and accessible. It'll help us save in 3 different ways, at least 3. On the left-hand side of the slide, we see one aspect of the tree that could be on your computer. When we look at that, and the way we access that is 2 different ways too. On the very bottom of the screen, we see something that says, okay, most roads lead to Rome, which is a kind of a twist on the ancient saying, but most roads lead to home on your computer. You could access it if you've placed it on the taskbar on the bottom of your screen to the left, and you could also access it with the window at the bottom that you see on the right-hand side of this slide, which is located on the left-hand bottom of your computer ordinarily. Although you could still rearrange the placement of things on your desktop, but we're not going to talk about that. Back to the top. Once you've accessed your desktop and you see this menu appear, home, from the first green arrow, pressing that will lead to the end of that green arrow. That green arrow from home can lead you to the File Explorer that you see at the other end of the yellow arrow, the File Explorer system. Now I'm going to show you another way, which is your Microsoft Cloud system. If you are a Microsoft client, that is, that you have bought Microsoft 365 or have a form of that, maybe through your company or through your organization, you'll see a cloud file. And when you press that, there are a couple of things that you're going to see too. Let's follow the first long green arrow. When I press my personal cloud file system, I get the entire list, the tree of all of my cloud files, and I select the one that I want. Now, if you're not seeing that cloud display, look in the center of the slide to press to sync files. When you see this window and you see an X mark on your screen next to the cloud drive, press it. Once you press that button, you could start the process to synchronize with the cloud. Pressing the non-activated button, you could see the Start OneDrive has got a slash mark through it. Once you press it, you'll see another window pop up. It reads Start OneDrive to keep your files backed up and up to date on all your devices. Press that red button and bingo! You'll see your files start to synchronize. Then you're a little bit safer. Once you've selected that synchronize button and you see now the cloud is blue, that means you're synchronized. You can select that cloud file that reads your target with your target name. And in this case, I'm showing you my NCRSP folder. I have things classified as accessories for meetings. You can do it any way you want to. I wanted to choose a word that started with A, although you could always fool the sorting system by putting a 1 in front of it. It's true. Once I established that folder, accessories for meetings, I created subfolders for it. One for the administrative council, another one for the executive board meetings. And from, for example, the administrative council meeting, I have agenda, attendance, meeting minutes, and meeting documents. Similarly for the executive board. There's an additional feature that I made which has all of the minutes, all the approved minutes combined into one document in chronological order. By having them in one document, and you could see it's been changed to a PDF file format, which you could do from just about any product. A user only has to access the file, use Control F to start the search window, enter in the keyword or term, and then the icon will pop to all the places, all the different pages of the collective minutes where that topic appears. It's really neat and it's fun to have and use. Again, when you're thinking in terms of the future, establish a system that you believe will work for you. Mine has been based on trial and error and the idiosyncrasies of my own system. You have your own system, perhaps, with your system's own details. But I've discovered, took me a long time, but naming each folder using a date system, the NCRSP way, is most helpful. It took me a while to get used to that. For example, June 12th, 2025 appears as 6 period, 12 period, 25, and then the name. Then use that folder to store everything that's pertinent to that meeting. Reports, finance reports, committee reports, membership reports, all into that one folder. Then, if you use a previous report to establish your new set of minutes, because of synchronization, you probably already know this, but If you don't, please listen. Take your old file folder that you want to modify to the minutes of the day. Save it in a new folder that you've established. New set of dates, new combination, new collection of files. Save it to that file and then begin your changes. In other words, before you make a single keystroke to modify an already saved document, rename it and save it someplace where you can find it according to your established system that you're going to establish or have established. You'll thank yourself. Therefore, once you do that, any kind of synchronization to modify the old document will be safe and happy, and you'll still have your old document intact, and you'll have your new document started. Use the same system that you established to save your documents periodically, and absolutely do not depend on default paths. Do not depend on Control S. Travel the tree. Now use the same system, whatever you choose, to duplicate your backup on the cloud, external drives, and other forms of storage. Consistency will force your mind to be disciplined, and you'll be better able to find items in times of crisis or when you're really pushed, when something is urgent. Oh, we've got to find it right now. Oh, Secretary, Madam Secretary, please find when we did this. What a panicky moment that can be. But travel the tree, make yourself on a forced path of discipline, and it'll help save you a lot of stress. One other note, if you use short titles on your folders and a meaningful title, a topic title, that way when you go to the tree and want to retrieve it, if you press the initial of that file, it leads to all the files of that same initial, if not to the file itself. It's really nice. Now, problematic save defaults. Loading to system space and no accessibility from temporary documents cache. It's a retrieval nightmare. What do I mean about that? Oftentimes when we just do Control S, it's saving to this PC, of course. As you know, when it saves to this PC, to your own device, it's going to occupy the C drive. And the C drive, when it goes in the red zone and full, your operating system does not work very well. But look what happens. When you see an access where it oftentimes default saves, it's going to one of these C drive folders called websites. It's a live document, that's true, it's showing it's synchronizing, but look at the code string that's used to name it. When you go back and try to access files directly from this website folder, it's often a problem. You can't do it. This is oftentimes a temporary cache, being used as a temporary cache for your files. So, on the other hand, some safer, more reliable files to access in hard time, hard drive kind of style way is to travel your tree. It's not literal, and it's ironic, and it's an oxymoron, some of the terms, but it is a path that will save you time and stress later. Go to your personal drive from your tree. Then you could save things too to add a place. Add a place using this interface to access your OneDrive is another way to save your documents. When you go to add a place, it'll take you to a window that has the OneDrive. The OneDrive will ask you for your email. This will pop up, and that's the place, another place that you could use to save. Now, old school, but is a must school, is an external drive too. On your tree, you'll also see the external drive icon. There you have duplicated your drives that the file folder system that you established, and you save your new documents there too. Now, taking care of collaboration, publication, and shared responsibilities all at once. Cloud saving. If you have a free Google Gmail account, or if you could start one, you'll find a whole suite or collection of free applications that come with that Gmail account. The way you access it is by going to the hamburger interface. It looks like a waffle, 9 dots. And then when you press that, you'll see a menu of many of the applications, not all, but many of them. One of which usually appears is the icon for your drive. Your drive you could make appear on your bar, on your browser bar, as a bookmark. If you do it twice, click it twice, you could remove or change the name or just leave it as an icon to save space. That drive icon will take you to a new wonderful territory that you can establish with all your files. That My Drive, you could make the files you want, you could rename them or move them, reorganize them anytime the way you want. You can also use this portal to access files other people send you and share. Make sure that you make copies so you could edit and save files, especially when you're harvesting items from the website. This icon, which is the arrow down, that means that in my case, I have sorted it Z to A. You can alphabetize and sort your files A to Z, Z to A. And on this page, there are other kinds of sortings too, by date modified, for example. You can duplicate your file system that you made on your computer onto your Google Drive. That will make life easier because your files are retrievable to you once you get set in your mind, okay, everything I'm naming is this, this, this. It'll be customized to what you prefer. You can establish knowledge and information that will be part of history, accessible and complete. Every report, as I mentioned, can be stored in one meeting folder, which you can hyperlink or old school attach to minutes. So reports, say for example, a finance report, if you're doing it hard copy, you can attach the files or combine them. So your minutes are attached with a copy of the finance report. Or you can load that finance report onto your cloud drive, get a link that you can then insert into your minutes so that a 2-page minute will still stay 2 pages instead of 5 pages because of all the reports that have been attached. You can, as I said before, make one long file of all the minutes that have been approved so that members can access search term, put in a search term and access the specific minutes, place, and decision. When you help with agenda, I've included a sample agenda too. You could put in all your links too, so that working documents can be instantly shared within that one-page agenda. Also, you can make your documents, if you wish, something that you could collaborate on. Say, for example, if you've got a working page agenda and you're asking selected members of your council, such as the officers only, to contribute, collaborate, and update and change and modify the agenda, you could do that through Google if you've got a Google document. Now, as far as the agenda goes, you are working with your leadership to decide what kind of style he or she wants. When I was president of my RSP, I like my agenda to have pictures and hot links and images to try to make it interesting to my members. That's why I put in all of the information I could with hyperlinks linked to more information. On the right-hand side, you'll see an agenda sample that you might want to use if you have nothing, if you're starting from scratch. Basic elements of a typical agenda. You could hyperlink or not, it's up to you. In your 6-page handout, the second half of it are some things that I wish that I knew back in 2018 when I first became president for one educational society. And I certainly wish that I had known a year ago. And that is all the work that we interpret as part of the role of secretary should meet the 5 major elements of the RSP plan. And that is leadership accountability, communication, legislative action, community service, and quality of life. Our responsibilities may evolve beyond the basic requirements that we think an ordinary secretary's job is being. Yes, we help with the leadership accountability by making, establishing, and maintaining record keeping. Our minutes are historical business records of the decisions and actions that include who came to the meeting event with finance and committee reports, unfinished and new business decisions, things that were tabled, the names of the members who move items to the table, and, although not required, who seconds the motion, because sometimes the leadership would like to know who it was that seconded a piece of action. The resulting votes and decision, archive records, including but not limited to meeting minutes, reports, publications, and keep and maintain governing documents. The RSP regional, state, maybe even national, constitution, bylaws, and policies should be accessible to all members. Everyone has a right to know the rules that we're to abide by. Communication. You're helping in communication when you assist the president with agenda, when you publish reports, minutes, newsletters, and when you give information and content to the email, web, social media, postings, and especially if you're also the webmaster. And you're going to use your monthly NCAE membership reports to help with name tags, correspondence, email, snail mail, updating contact information. You're going to share and promote your unit, your region, your state through publications and resources for members. You're going to assist with your individual unit or maybe individual regional brochure that would be in addition to our state brochure. I always liked to have a brochure for my unit when I was president because it would have the specific meeting dates, topics, the names of the guest speakers, the names of the well-known people from the community giving the inspiration or message for the day. That way I would be able to fit in two high-profile people that may be attractive to our members. I also like to assist with the brag board too, so that the brag boards, mini brag boards to one to each school facility in the public school system, and also large brag boards that would travel to high traffic areas such as banks, the central office, libraries. Help with flyers, media outreach, and that goes for online, hard copy, newspaper, and radio. Helping to advertise your meetings is really exciting. Correspondence and forms as your local or regional needs them. Legislative quality of life community service snail mail to members without email. Now for some step-by-step minutes, some methods. It is so handy to have a hard copy of, say for example, for an executive meeting. If you have a hard copy of your executive members, if your president or someone calls for a roll call vote, you'll have the list there and ready, and you could tick off how people had voted, and it makes it easier and faster. You can use the agenda as the organizing structure for your notes. If you have it on your typewriter, on your laptop, make sure it's the extra copy and you're not spoiling your original copy that you're keeping for your records. And you could type away, filling in the information, the time that the meeting was called to order, who moved the acceptance of the agenda, who seconded, just in case they want to know, and the outcome of the votes and so on. Then you make your file, type and save your minutes, both as Word and PDF. Word because it's easy to edit, PDF because the PDF will hold all the formatting necessary. If you have Adobe Acrobat, you'll find that even though you've got a PDF, you can still edit the images, content, make corrections to your PDF formatted minutes too. Then you share your PDF with your executives for any additions or corrections. That helps save you a lot of heartache later on if you have things misspelled or you didn't understand something that went on. Then you correct and resave. Yes, going through your tree, saving it on your computer, on your cloud drive, on your external drive. And then also resave it as a PDF to send to your executives, to those your executives wish. If your system allows, you can post your minutes to the website if there's no sensitive information included. That way too, you could get more eyes on it for the next stage, which is the approval or amended process. If people have had access to your minutes before the meeting, then they have a better chance of saying, okay, that's not quite how I remembered. I think it was this way, and this is what happened. Rather than springing the minutes at the last minute at the meeting itself, having them sent to your members ahead of time allows the corrections and amendments to be worked through quicker and faster. Reading minutes aloud at a meeting is never a good idea unless you are forced to do so. But avoiding doing that is the best course of action. If you're doing it on Zoom or online in Google as a Google Meet, you could also share your document, your minutes, to the group and make corrections and amendments as the body decides, and then offer it for immediate correction and approval. This could keep you from having another item on your president's plate to have something accepted. That way you could avoid having double minutes to be accepted at the next meeting. Make sure you share the corrected minutes if any changes are made, again to the minutes and the virtual world if you're permitted to do so. Edit, process, save to OneDrive, your external drive, computer drive, and cloud drive again. Help communications share process stories and photos for the newspaper or online media, and also for social media. And also something I do when I'm a secretary at a live meeting, or even a president at a live meeting, I like to take photographs. It makes a nice accessory piece to add to stories, and also for social media posting, and also to send as an article to Panorama. Save, save, save. 3 ways. Triple save. Save as a Word document. Yes, making sure that appears. Save as a PDF, using that interface and saving it. Save in the cloud. Save that. So it's really a good precaution to take. Save, save, save. In writing the minutes, I know many of you have your own methodologies already. I like to use the Zoom recordings and Zoom transcripts for voice-to-text help. And this is in addition to notes I write or type during meetings. For in-person meetings, I make home videos with my phone and audio recordings, and I take photographs too. To make good records that will last even 50 years from now, you harvest data, harvest information. From the Zoom, you can harvest the reports if you're the host of the Zoom. You can see the check-in for who checked into the meeting, who checked out, at what time, for what duration, so that when a vote is taken, if you have also recorded the timestamps on the Zoom recording, you'll understand, well, that's the reason why so-and-so couldn't vote, because he or she wasn't there. Or, the reason why a person doesn't know what happened was because he or she was absent during the time that such and such happened. So it makes it for a better understanding and explanation for why there's sometimes a dissonance of somebody's perception of a meeting as opposed to another one's perception, and it helps in the communication process. Technically, the secretary is the timekeeper for debate 2. Debate is typically held with affirmative going first and then alternating pro-con, but that's not your job to manage the debate, it's just to time it. Ordinarily, it's 3-minute limits with no speaker going twice in a row, but your organization will have its own rules. As a courtesy, people who are making presentations at a meeting typically send reports well in advance of the meeting so that people could examine the report, consider it, think about it, so that their participation at the meeting will be more meaningful and productive. If that didn't happen, surely those reports should be sent to you so that you could add it to the record of the minutes. If your minutes are also being sent to absent members as a newsletter, you can make them colorful, joyful, and inviting. When I was president of my RSP, I like to put in illustrations and pictures and images to make the minutes almost like a mini newsletter. Our newsletter is typically sent twice a year. During my time, I like to make it quarterly, but even then, there wasn't a full accounting of all the meetings that happened in between. So I wanted the minutes to serve as a newsletter too. But if your minutes are for a formal world, you can be stark. You can just have text only, text only, text only, with hyperlinks if it'll help cut down on the number of pages. You are writing your minutes to serve all. The bare minimum is really all that is required if you've got a lot of things going in your life. How detailed your minutes will be will depend upon your president. What does your president want? What would serve him or her so that he or she could do his or her very best job for everyone? If your president, for example, wants the full names and details to record the process of how a decision was made, he or she might want all those details to document that fair treatment was given to all points of view. Outcomes must be part of the vital records no matter what, such as an up vote, down vote. Minutes do not, however, give a record verbatim and not at all notation of what happened minute by minute. Yet, minutes can be useful for some main points of discussion. Excluding speaker names can avoid other problems, however. Again, using your phone video or phone voice recorder may be very helpful to you, especially because you're sitting in the middle of a meeting and there's some people conducting a conversation over here and some people conducting another conversation there. It can be very confusing with all that stimuli. So having a recording sometimes helps keep track of things. In issuing the minutes, you could use email, cloud links, attachments, make a continuous searchable document. For RSP, hard copy mailing to members without emails, and web posts and social media posts can be very, very useful. For example, when in publication on our local website, we include the agenda and the minutes as a page. If you're going to do it in email, you can include a link to it or attach it. When you're doing it as a link, you can control the exclusivity of that document by determining if it's restricted and to whom that link or document would be accessible. If you don't have a corresponding secretary, guess what? You can help there too. You can help with making letterheads to create a branding for your local or your region. You can make it friendly with pictures of your officers and their contact information. That way you could reach out to newly retired prospective members because they might recognize somebody on your cabinet. It also personalizes appeals for PAC, fundraisers for our charity, formal letterheads to legislators, businesses, corporations. You could assist in that. You can make greeting cards for internal and external use, and you can make postcard reminders too. Beyond the basics, your secretary role, really, if you can think it, You can probably make it happen one way or another. You can do all of these things because you are a lifelong learner. Technology is not just for a certain age group. The majority of things I learned didn't happen until after I was age 70. All of these things are at your fingertips. Nothing is too hard for you. You can also use the calendar tool too. You can attach your agenda, minutes, Zoom links directly into a calendar. You can use the calendar as a means to invite people. It's really easy to use too. I love the calendar. Summary from the ancient world of hard copy to the connected world. You have digital tools, physical tools, cloud tools, computer applications, dedicated email accounts. You could have as many as you want to, and backup systems galore. Think ahead. You have notebooks, you have shared cloud drives, you have flash drives you can make, and you could share all the past minutes with the next secretary and give him or her everything that you know so that your successor can succeed. Secretarial 10 Commandments, I leave you to smile at and have fun with. But the most important lesson is to never give up. If you see a problem, find or invent, create a solution, and have fun doing what you can when you're doing your best. I have at the end of the slideshow some resources that you could also use. They're hyperlinked. And thank you again for being a secretary. You are a key to success in communications. Congratulations. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please email me on the email address that you see on the screen above. Thank you again for your time. Until next time, bye.